Imagine, like a single company basically holding the keys to the entire future of global transportation.
It sounds like sci-fi, but it's happening.
Yeah, right now, this one Chinese juggernaut, CATL, controls a massive 45% of the global electric vehicle battery market. So today's deep dive, our real mission here is to unpack how they built that crazy empire and how Europe is practically scrambling to keep the lights on.
It really is, a modern industrial Game of Thrones. We're looking at a fascinating stack of reports today detailing CATL's sheer tech scale and Europe's 4.1 billion euro survival plan.
Which, I mean, actually just boils down to a massive pragmatic compromise. But CTL's dominance didn't happen by accident, right? It seems like their true advantage isn't just the final product they make.
No, not at all. It's how they actually build it. It all comes down to um, extreme vertical integration. They don't just assemble the batteries, they control the entire board.
From the ground up.
Exactly. From mining the raw lithium and cobalt, straight through to recycling the spent cells. And when you combine that with a research and development force of like 18,000 scientists,
Wow, 18,000. That's a small city.
yeah, it's massive. And it gives them this insane velocity. They can take a chemical breakthrough in a lab and scale it to mass production before traditional, legacy automakers even finish drafting a proposal.
Which totally makes sense when you look at their 2026 lineup. The Quillen battery is like a marathon runner, right? Built for endurance with a 1,000-kilometer range.
Right, the premium steak on the menu.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Shaanxing is more like an Olympic sprinter. It gives you a 400-kilometer charge in just 6 minutes. Like fast food charging.
Which is wild on its own.
It really is. But the one that really caught my eye in these reports is the Nextra sodium-ion battery. Because it doesn't use any lithium at all, it's 30% cheaper to produce, and it works perfectly at 40 degrees below zero.
The cheap, weatherproof staple diet.
Right, but wait, I have to push back here because sodium ions are physically larger than lithium ions, right? Which means they can't pack together as tightly.
Right, the density is lower.
Yeah, the reports note its energy density caps out at around 175 watt-hours per kilogram. So if it's heavier and bulkier for the exact same amount of power, automakers aren't going to put that in a flagship EV. So is it really a true market threat or just like a niche thing?
Oh, that is the brilliant part. It is heavier, so it absolutely won't go into a luxury sports car.
Okay.
But CATL's chairman projects that sodium-ion tech will eventually replace 30 to 40% of the total existing market.
Wait, really? Just commuter cars?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Because most people just need a reliable, affordable car to get to work. And by shifting that massive chunk of the mass market to sodium, CATL effectively immunizes itself against global lithium shortages.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, they basically secure their own supply chain against any future price shocks.
Yeah. That immunity is a massive shield, but I mean, it's also a weapon. Because by driving base costs down 30%, CATL has essentially priced European manufacturers out of their own backyard.
Yeah, they really have.
Which brings us to Europe's whole original dream of battery sovereignty, building their own fully independent supply chain.
And that dream has just hit a brick wall. European producers are facing a crushing 30 to 40% cost disadvantage right out of the gate.
Mainly because of the high regional energy prices, right?
Exactly. And we saw the fallout from this recently with the high-profile bankruptcy of the Swedish battery giant, Northvolt.
Right, yeah.
They tried to compete on CTL's terms, volume and cost, but without having the integrated supply chain or the cheap energy to actually pull it off.
So what happens now? Is Europe just waving the white flag and giving up?
Not giving up, but they are definitely pivoting to, coopetition.
Coopetition. If you can't beat them, join them.
Exactly. Since they can't win a pure price war, Europe is using regulation as a defensive perimeter now. Take the EU battery passport.
Right, which is like a digital birth certificate for every single battery.
Yeah. And if an imported battery was made using a high-carbon energy grid, like coal, this passport flags it and slaps it with heavy penalties at the border.
That's such a fascinating compromise. It forces a shift toward cleaner energy, but it also leads to these massive local joint ventures. Like the prime example here is that 4.1 billion euro partnership between Stellantis and CATL.
Right. To build a carbon-neutral plant in Spain, by late 2026.
So they're essentially importing the competition's foundation just to satisfy those made in Europe labels.
Precisely. They're leveraging Chinese chemistry and scale, but just adapting it to fit European environmental rules.
It really shows that true industrial power today isn't about, the legacy of a car brand anymore. It's about software, supply chain resilience, and the sheer speed of bringing lab chemistry to factory floors.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for today's deep dive. We always appreciate you tuning in to explore these massive, complex geopolitical puzzles with us.
It's been a great discussion. And as you watch the EV market evolve, I'll leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Oh, let's hear it.
We talked about CATL controlling the whole board. Well, their recycling arm, Brump, is already recovering over 90% of the lithium from used batteries.
90%, that's incredible.
Yeah. So if the future of raw materials relies on this kind of closed-loop circular economy, it really makes you wonder, will your neighborhood junkyard eventually become the most valuable gold mine of the 21st century?